Amina's hands trembled as she stared at the man standing before her in the luxury hotel suite. The wheelchair was gone. The tattered clothes were gone. And old Musa, the silent beggar she'd fed every single day for months, was standing tall in an expensive agbada, smiling at her with tears in his eyes. "My name," he said softly, "is not Musa. I am Alhaji Karim Sule, and I've been watching you." 3 months earlier, Amina Yusuf had woken up to the familiar symphony of chaos that was Baytown District. The waterfront slum erupted with life before dawn, vendors shouting over each other, boats honking, children crying, and the smell of fish mixing with exhaust fumes in the humid Port Harcourt air. At 23, Amina had learned to find music in the noise. She tied her faded wrapper around her waist, smoothed down her worn blouse, and stepped out of her cramped room to begin another day of survival. Her roadside food stand sat beneath a patched blue tarpaulin that flapped violently whenever the wind picked up. The wooden table was scarred and uneven, but Amina kept it spotless. By 6 in the morning, she was already frying akara, the aroma of bean cakes drawing early commuters like a spell. Her smile never wavered, even when customers complained about prices or when she had to make change from the few crumpled naira notes tucked in her wrapper. "Amina," Mama Ibun called from the neighboring stall where she sold plantains. The older woman's voice carried above the morning din. "Now only you go, dey smile inside suffering. Your teeth go pain you one day." Amina laughed, flipping the akara with practiced ease. "Mama, if I no smile, what'n I go do? Cry? That one no go bring customers." But Mama Ibn wasn't entirely wrong. Amina's situation was desperate. Her slippers had holes that let in rainwater. Her umbrella was held together with duct tape. Most nights, she went to bed hungry, saving whatever little she earned for ingredients to cook the next day. Yet somehow, she always found enough to share. Every morning around 7, old Musa would appear. If you're already feeling the emotion of this story, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss our powerful African tales. Drop a comment telling us what you would do in Amina's situation. Now, let's continue. Old Musa arrived in a battered wheelchair that squeaked with every push. No one knew where he came from or where he went. He never spoke, never made eye contact, just parked himself near the gutter about 10 feet from Amina's stand and sat in silence. His clothes were layers of rags, his face weathered and scarred, his legs twisted at unnatural angles beneath a dirty blanket. Most people walked past him without a glance. Some spat in his direction. Children threw pebbles until their mothers scolded them. But Amina always stopped what she was doing, prepared a plate of whatever she was selling, jollof rice, fried yam, akara, and beans, and brought it to him with a bottle of water. "Good morning, Uncle Musa," she would say gently, placing the food in his lap. He never responded, never smiled, just stared ahead with empty eyes and ate slowly with shaking hands. Amina would return to her stand, and the morning would continue. Mama Ibn watched this ritual with growing frustration. One particularly slow morning, when rain had kept most customers away, she finally confronted her young friend. "Amina, you de craze?" Mama Ibn demanded, hands on her wide hips. "You never even chop breakfast, but you de give that useless beggar food every day. He no even talk to you. He no even say thank you." Amina arranged the few remaining akara on her tray, her voice quiet but firm. "Mama, if I wait for thank you before I help person, then wouldn't be the meaning of kindness?" "Kindness?" Mama Ibn scoffed. "My sister, this na survival. No be Sunday school. You suppose they think about yourself first." "God day, Mama." Amina's eyes held a gentle stubbornness. "If he bless me, I go bless others. If he no bless me today, At least I try. Mama Ibn shook her head in defeat, muttering about young girls and their foolish hearts. But she couldn't help admiring Amina's spirit, even if she thought it was misplaced. What neither woman noticed was the well-dressed man who had been observing the exchange from across the street. Mr. Toba stood partially hidden behind a newspaper stand, his expensive watch catching the morning light. He watched Amina crouch beside the beggar, adjusting the blanket that had slipped from the old man's shoulders. He watched her smile at him even though he didn't acknowledge her. Then Mr. Toba pulled out his phone, made a brief call, and disappeared into the crowd. Days turned into weeks. The rains came harder, and one evening, a violent storm tore Amina's tarpaulin completely from its moorings. She spent the next morning trying to salvage what she could, her clothes soaked, her spirit nearly broken. Mama Ibn found her sitting on an overturned bucket, staring at the ruined canopy with tears streaming down her face. Amina. No cry. We go find solution. Mama, I don't tire, Amina whispered. Everything I get done spoil. How I go continue? Mama Ibn helped her salvage the tarpaulin, and together they rigged up a temporary shelter using rope and bamboo poles. It was precarious and ugly, but it would keep the rain off for a few more days. That afternoon, business was painfully slow. By evening, Amina had sold only 3 plates of food. She counted her money, barely enough to buy ingredients for tomorrow. Then she heard the familiar squeak of old Musa's wheelchair. Her heart sank. She had exactly 1 plate of jollof rice left, the one she'd planned to eat for dinner. Mama Ibn saw her hesitation and shook her head firmly. Amina, no even think, Am. You never chop since morning. That food enough for you? But Amina was already reaching for the plate. Mama, this man done dey hungry since morning. I fit manage bread later. With which money? Mama Ibn's voice rose with frustration. Amina, you too kind. This world go chew you and spit you out. Amina walked toward old Musa, the plate warm in her hands. As she bent to place it in his lap, she noticed something strange. For the first time in all these months, he looked directly at her. His eyes, usually glazed and distant, seemed to be studying her face with an intensity that made her uncomfortable. The moment passed quickly, and he returned his gaze to the ground, but Amina felt a chill run down her spine. That night, she went to bed with only a piece of bread and water in her stomach. But she slept peacefully, her conscience clear. The next morning changed everything. Amina arrived at her usual spot at dawn, expecting to see old Musa's wheelchair parked near the gutter, but the space was empty. She set up her stand, telling herself he was just running late. By noon, he still hadn't appeared. By evening, worry had settled into her chest like a stone. Mama Ibn, you see Uncle Musa today? The older woman shrugged. That one? Maybe he done die. Beggar people know they last long for this kind street. Mama, no talk like that. Amina's voice was sharp with distress. She spent the rest of the day asking other vendors, but no one had seen him. Most didn't even remember who she was talking about. The second day came and went, still no old Musa. Amina's anxiety grew. Had something happened to him? Was he sick somewhere? Did he have anyone to care for him? The questions gnawed at her through sleepless nights. On the 3rd day, she searched the nearby streets during her lunch break, asking anyone who would listen. A taxi driver remembered seeing a man in a wheelchair near the old market, but he wasn't sure. Amina walked to the old market, but found nothing. Her food business suffered from the distraction. She burned a pot of beans, forgot to collect payment from a customer, and snapped at Mama Ibn for the first time ever. Sorry, Mama, she apologized immediately, tears welling up. I'd worry about Uncle Musa. Mama Ibn softened, placing a motherly hand on Amina's shoulder. My dear, you get good heart. But sometimes, people come into our life and go. Na so life be. But Amina couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. On the fourth morning, she arrived at her stand to find something unusual. Where old Musa always parked his wheelchair, there was a stone, and beneath the stone, a crisp, white envelope. Amina's hand shook as she picked it up. Her name was written on the front in elegant handwriting. She looked around frantically, but the street was empty except for a few early vendors setting up. She tore open the envelope. Inside was a single card with an address and a message. Come to the Silver Crest Hotel, Suite 909. You are expected. A friend. Amina read it 3 times, her heart pounding. The Silver Crest Hotel was the most expensive hotel in Port Harcourt. She'd seen it from afar, a towering glass building that seemed to mock the poverty of neighborhoods like Baytown. Why would anyone want her to go there? Was this some kind of trap? A cruel joke? This is where things get intense. If this story is touching your heart, please hit that like button and leave a comment. Tell us, would you go to that hotel if you were Amina? Keep watching to find out what happens next. Mama Ibn found her standing frozen, staring at the card. Wouldn't be that? Amina showed her the invitation. Mama Ibn's eyes widened, then narrowed with suspicion. Amina, no go. This thing no make sense. Who go invite you to Silver Crest? Maybe na Yahoo boys or ritualist? But what if it get connection with Uncle Musa? That beggar? Mama Ibn laughed harshly. You think say beggar man get money for Silver Crest? Amina, use your sense. This not trap. But curiosity and concern warred within Amina's heart. What if old Musa was somehow involved? What if he needed help? Against every rational thought, against Mama Ibn's warnings and her own fear, she made a decision. I go, Mama. But if I no return by evening, you know where to find me. The Silver Crest Hotel rose before Amina like a glass mountain. She had taken a bus from Baytown, spending precious money she couldn't afford to lose. Her worn clothes, her old slippers, her faded wrapper, everything about her screamed that she didn't belong in this world of marble floors and crystal chandeliers. The security guard at the entrance looked her up and down with barely concealed contempt. I get appointment, Amina said, her voice smaller than she intended. She showed him the invitation card. He examined it with suspicion, made a phone call, then grudgingly waved her through. Inside, the lobby was like stepping into a different universe. Wealthy guests in expensive suits and designer dresses glided past her. A woman in a fur coat, despite the heat, wrinkled her nose as Amina walked by. A child pointed at her torn slippers and asked his mother loudly why that woman looked so dirty. Amina wanted to disappear into the polished floor. She approached the reception desk, her confidence crumbling with each step. The receptionist, a young woman with perfect makeup and a cold smile, looked down at her. Can I help you? I'd find Suite 909. The receptionist's smile became even colder. I'm sorry, but that's a private suite. Are you sure you have the right hotel? I get invitation. Amina thrust the card forward with shaking hands. Before the receptionist could respond, a familiar voice cut through the lobby. Miss Yusuf, we've been expecting you. Amina turned to see Mr. Toba, the well-dressed man she'd occasionally noticed watching her stand. He was immaculate in a 3-piece suit, his shoes so shiny they reflected the chandelier light. He gestured toward the elevators. Please, come with me. Every instinct screamed at Amina to run. This was wrong. This was dangerous. But her feet moved forward, following Mr. Toba into a golden elevator that hummed softly as it ascended. He said nothing during the ride, his face an unreadable mask. Amina's heart hammered so hard she thought it might burst through her chest. The elevator doors opened onto a private hallway, Only 2 doors existed on this floor, both massive and imposing. Mr. Toba led her to suite 909 and knocked twice. "Come in," a voice called from inside. Mr. Toba opened the door and stepped aside. Amina entered slowly, her eyes adjusting to the dim lighting. The suite was enormous, decorated with art and furniture that probably cost more than her entire neighborhood. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a breathtaking view of Port Harcourt, but Amina barely noticed any of it. Because standing in the center of the room, dressed in an expensive white agbada embroidered with gold thread, was old Musa. Except he wasn't sitting in a wheelchair. He was standing. His legs, which she'd thought were crippled, supported him perfectly. His face, which she'd only seen weathered and dirty, was clean and distinguished. And his eyes, those empty eyes that had never seemed to see anything, were now bright with intelligence and emotion. Amina's legs gave out. She stumbled backward, and Mr. Toba caught her arm, guiding her to a chair. Her mind couldn't process what she was seeing. Was this real? Was she dreaming? Had she died on the way here, and this was some strange afterlife? "Please, don't be afraid," the man said, his voice gentle but strong, nothing like the silence old Musa had maintained. "My name is not Musa. I am Alhaji Karim Sule, and I've been watching you, Amina Yusuf." Amina's mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. Alhaji Karim moved closer, his expression kind. "I know this is shocking. Please, let me explain. Mr. Toba, bring her some water." As Amina sipped the cold water with trembling hands, Alhaji Karim sat across from her in an expensive leather chair. He studied her face with the same intensity she'd glimpsed that last evening when she'd given him her only plate of food. "For the past year," he began, "I have been conducting an experiment. You see, I am a wealthy man, Amina. Very wealthy. But wealth has taught me that most people only show kindness when they expect something in return. They are kind to the rich, hoping for favors. They are kind to the powerful, hoping for connections. But what about kindness to those who can never repay it? That is the true measure of a heart." Amina listened, her mind reeling. This couldn't be real. But it was. Every detail was too vivid to be a dream. "I disguised myself as a crippled beggar and positioned myself in different locations across Port Harcourt. Baytown, Rumola, Elema, everywhere. I wanted to see how the poor, those who have the least, treat those who have nothing. What I found was disappointing. In most places I was ignored. In some I was abused. People stepped over me, spat at me. Some even kicked my wheelchair when they thought no one was watching." Tears began to form in Amina's eyes as she remembered all the times she'd seen people treat old Musa with cruelty. But then, Alhaji Karim continued, his own voice thick with emotion. "I came to your corner of Baytown, and every single day, without fail, you brought me food. You never asked my name. You never asked for anything in return. On days when I could see you had barely sold enough to feed yourself, you still shared. I watched you give me your last plate of rice that evening after the storm destroyed your canopy. I watched you go hungry so that I, a stranger who never even thanked you, could eat." A tear rolled down Amina's cheek. If this moment is making you emotional, you're not alone. Hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more incredible African stories that will touch your soul. Comment below and tell us, have you ever helped someone without expecting anything back? Now let's see what happens to Amina. That night, Alhaji Karim said, "I made my decision. Out of all the people I tested, in all the neighborhoods I visited, you were the only one who consistently showed true kindness. Not because you thought I might reward you, not because people were watching, but because you have a genuinely good heart. and I believe that such a heart deserves to be lifted." He stood and walked to a large mahogany desk in the corner of the room. From a drawer, he retrieved a leather folder and returned to Amina, placing it in her lap. "Open it." With shaking hands, Amina opened the folder. Inside were documents, official-looking papers with stamps and signatures. She couldn't understand most of the legal language, but certain words jumped out at her. Deed of ownership, Eastgate Commercial Area, and most incredibly, her own name. I don't understand," she whispered. Alhaji Karim smiled warmly. "Amina Yusuf, I have purchased a commercial property in the Eastgate area. It has been fully renovated and equipped as a modern restaurant. As of this morning, you are the legal owner of that property. The restaurant is called Amina's Kitchen, House of Warm Meals. It's yours, completely. No strings attached, no debt to repay." The room began to spin. Amina stared at the documents, then at Alhaji Karim, then back at the documents. But I can't. This is too much. You are just a young woman with a heart of gold," he interrupted gently. "Do you know how rare that is? In a world where everyone is scrambling for survival, you still found room for compassion. That is wealth that money cannot buy, and it deserves to be rewarded." Amina broke down completely. Sobs racked her body as the weight of months of struggle, years of poverty, and the overwhelming magnitude of this moment crashed over her. Alhaji Karim let her cry, understanding that sometimes tears are the only adequate response to grace. When she finally composed herself enough to speak, her voice was hoarse. "Why? Why me? I didn't do anything special." "That's exactly why you," Alhaji Karim replied. "You didn't think it was special. To you, it was simply the right thing to do. You never posted about it on social media. You never boasted to your friends. You just quietly, consistently, showed love to someone the world had forgotten. Amina, if more people were like you, this world would be a very different place." Mr. Toba, who had been standing silently by the door, now stepped forward with a warm smile. "Miss Amina, I've been Mr. Alhaji's assistant for 15 years. I've seen him help many people, but I've never seen him more moved than by your simple acts of kindness. You deserve every blessing coming your way." The next hour was a blur. Alhaji Karim explained the details. The restaurant was already fully stocked and staffed. She would have 3 employees to start, experienced cooks and servers who would help her manage the business. He had also deposited money into a new bank account in her name, enough to cover operating expenses for the first 6 months and to ensure she had personal financial stability. "But I want you to promise me something," Alhaji Karim said, as the meeting drew to close. "Never lose that heart of yours. Success can change people. Money can make them forget where they came from. Promise me that you'll continue to help others, just as you helped a beggar you thought could never repay you." Amina looked into his eyes, her own shining with determination through her tears. "I promise, sir. I swear on everything I hold dear. I will never forget." 2 weeks later, Amina's Kitchen opened its doors. The location was prime, right on a busy street in the commercial district, where office workers and shoppers passed by constantly. The interior was beautiful, clean white walls, comfortable seating, and a menu board that made Amina's heart swell with pride. Mama Ibun had closed her plantain stand and come to work as Amina's head supplier and occasional cook. The older woman still couldn't quite believe what had happened. "Amina, this not like film," Mama Ibn said on opening day, looking around the restaurant with wonder. "Who go believe say the girl way dey sell a cara under tarpaulin now get this kind fine place?" "Na God, Mama," Amina replied, adjusting the new uniform she wore. And Alhaji Karim, he showed me say kindness fit change life. The restaurant was an immediate success. Word spread quickly about the food seller from Baytown, who had been blessed with a miracle. Customers came not just for the delicious meals, but to hear the story. Local newspapers ran articles. A radio station interviewed her. But through it all, Amina remained humble, always crediting God and maintaining that she had simply done what anyone should do. But she didn't stop there. 3 months after opening, Amina launched a new initiative that made Alhaji Karim smile when he heard about it. She purchased a food truck, painted it bright yellow, and emblazoned the side with the words, "Amina's Hope Wagon." Twice a week, the truck would drive through Baytown, Rumola, and other poor neighborhoods, distributing free hot meals to anyone who needed them. No questions asked, no judgment, just warm food and warm smiles. The first time the Hope Wagon rolled into Baytown, Amina was behind the wheel. She parked near her old selling spot, and the crowd that gathered was enormous. People who had known her, who had bought food from her, who had seen her struggle, now watched her hand out free plates of rice, beans, and chicken. Mama Eben stood beside her, tears streaming down her face. "You remember when I tell you say you too kind? Say this world go chew you and spit you out?" Amina smiled, handing a plate to a young girl with hungry eyes. "Yes, Mama, I remember. I was wrong, my dear. This world no chew you. Instead, he bless you because of your good heart. You teach me something. Kindness no be weakness. Na the strongest thing person fit get." That evening, after the last plate had been distributed and the Hope Wagon had returned to base, Amina drove alone back to Baytown one more time. She parked near her old spot, now occupied by another young vendor trying to make ends meet. She walked to the exact place where old Moose's wheelchair used to sit, near the gutter that smelled of stale water and fish. From a container in her car, she took out a plate of food, jollof rice with chicken, the same meal she used to wish she could afford to cook. She placed it carefully on the ground, along with a bottle of water. A few passers-by looked at her strangely, but she didn't care. She stood there for a moment, remembering the silent old man who had changed her life, remembering the days of struggle and hunger, remembering the choice to give when she had nothing. "Thank you, Uncle Musa," she whispered to the empty air. "Or Alhaji Karim, thank you for teaching me that kindness is never wasted. It always finds its way home." As she turned to leave, a young boy, no more than 10 years old and clearly homeless, emerged from the shadows. He looked at the plate, then at Amina with suspicious eyes. "Na for who?" he asked. Amina smiled, the same warm smile she'd given old Musa countless times. "Na for you, if you hungry." The boy's eyes widened. He grabbed the plate and the water, muttered a quick, "Thank you, Ma," and disappeared back into the evening. Amina watched him go, her heart full. She understood now what Alhaji Karim had been trying to show her. Kindness wasn't a transaction. It wasn't an investment expecting returns. It was simply the right thing to do, regardless of who was watching or whether gratitude ever came. And somehow, mysteriously, when you gave from a pure heart, the universe conspired to give back in ways you could never imagine. As she drove home that night, past the glittering lights of Port Harcourt, past the wealthy neighborhoods and the poor ones, past the churches and mosques, and markets and malls, Amina felt a peace she'd never known before. Not because she now had money, or success, or recognition, but because she had learned the greatest lesson of all. A good heart is the greatest wealth anyone can possess. Months turned into years. Amina's kitchen expanded to 3 locations. The Hope Wagon grew into a fleet of 5 trucks, feeding thousands of people every week. Amina trained and employed dozens of young people from Baytown, giving them the same opportunity she'd been given. She never forgot where she came from. She never stopped checking on Mama Ebon, who had become like a mother to her. She never stopped looking for people who needed help, who needed a kind word, a warm meal, or a second chance. And once a month, without fail, Alhaji Karim Sule would visit one of her restaurants, sometimes announced, sometimes as a surprise. They would sit together, this powerful billionaire and the former street food seller, and talk about life, about kindness, about the measure of a heart. "You've done well," he told her during one such visit, looking around the bustling restaurant with satisfaction. "Better than I ever imagined." "Because you gave me a chance," Amina replied. "You saw something in me that I didn't see in myself." Alhaji Karim shook his head. "No, Amina. I simply revealed what was already there. The kindness, the generosity, the pure heart, those were always yours. I just made sure they could flourish instead of being crushed by poverty. But the credit belongs to you. You chose to give when you had every reason to keep." That choice changed everything. We've reached the end of this incredible journey, but before you go, please do us a favor. Subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. Hit that like button to help others discover this story. Drop a comment and tell us, what lesson touched you the most from Amina's story? And share this video with someone who needs to hear this message of hope. Thank you for watching. And remember, your kindness can change someone's world. Years later, when people asked Amina about the secret to her success, she never talked about business strategies or marketing plans. She simply smiled and said, "I learned that when you feed someone's hunger, God feeds yours. When you give from your heart, life gives back to your soul. The measure of a person isn't in their bank account, but in how they treat those who can never repay them." And on quiet evenings, when the restaurants were closed and the hope wagons were parked, Amina would sometimes drive back to Baytown, back to that corner near the gutter where an old man in a wheelchair had once sat in silence. She would stand there, remembering, grateful for the disguised angel who had taught her the most important truth of all, that kindness, true kindness, is its own reward. But somehow, mysteriously, beautifully, it also becomes the seed from which all blessings grow.